Hey team, today we're going to talk about leadership with Caren Hergenroeder. Caren is a 1997 graduate of the United States Military Academy at West Point. While she was there, she was a member of the track team, track and field, and competed in the long jump was her specialty. Once she graduated, she was in the Army for 10 years. During that time, she had one combat deployment to Iraq. And then she decided to transition out and she became a Department of Defense civilian. And she is currently the Director of Protocol and Strategic Partnerships at the Defense Acquisition University. I had to practice that. I think I got it right.
You got it right.
Okay, perfect. Caren is married to her husband, Matt Hergenroeder. He is a Army colonel. Little known fact, I actually introduced Caren and Matt about 11 years ago, and here we are today. So that's a little known fact for the group there. And Caren and Matt have two lovely kids. Sydney is 6 and little Matthew is 3. So Caren, you, throughout your time in the West Point, in the Army, and as a civilian, you've worked for a lot of different bosses. What are some of the characteristics of the best bosses that you've worked for?
I appreciate bosses that assign me in areas that I'm passionate about. And when they let me work in these areas, I am motivated to come to work and my creativity just explodes. So I really appreciate that. I also like bosses that give you space, but yet hold you accountable. They give you enough, but they still walk around.
Right.
They are relatable. And when I say relatable, I mean someone could be 65 years old, but had young children once and can relate to the stage of your life that you're in. Bosses that show they can take leave and still be accessible on the weekends is important to me. Not too accessible, but accessible enough that you know if you needed something, they would be there for you. And I've learned that I appreciate bosses that are okay with me only checking my BlackBerry maybe once a weekend, because I need some downtime too. So I appreciate bosses that give me that leeway.
Absolutely. So it sounds like you're talking about a delicate balance in a lot of different things, whether it's not checking the BlackBerry too much, but you know, the right amount.
Exactly.
Being relatable, but also giving clear guidance and letting your subordinates know what the standards are and what you're looking for.
Right.
So, Caren, as a former Army officer, transition into the civilian world, what's the best thing that the Army taught you that you have transitioned and used as part of your leadership style as a civilian?
I would have to say how to counsel my subordinates or my employees, and that means how to set goals with them and how to talk about their strengths and their areas of improvement. And also I've learned that to take with me from the Army is that, you know how Army is with feedback, always giving feedback, that feedback is really a gift. And I've learned to really appreciate that. It's 360 degrees, so they can give me, my employees can give me feedback as I give them feedback as well. And also just to be professional in all areas with your subordinates, with your employees. And one small example is on social media. Maybe just being friends with them on LinkedIn and not on Facebook and not on Instagram, so that you're not completely involved in their lives on the weekends. They can have a little space from you. Things like you have with Lopez on leadership, though, that's definitely a different case where you would want your subordinates and employees to follow you.
Right, absolutely. So you talked about some of the positive things that the Army gave you as a civilian leader. What are some of the things that you had to leave behind, that you had to, you know, really make a change as you transitioned from an Army officer to a civilian?
I had to dial back my intensity and realize that we're a soldier 24/7. That's what they always taught us, but not necessarily the mentality in the civilian world. And I had to realize that the military is not in everybody's background, and that everyone doesn't know the basic standards that I might live by. So just to have a little more patience. And the biggest thing was you don't get instant respect. You don't have that lieutenant colonel rank on, or that colonel rank, or that sergeant first class rank, and you have to prove your experience and prove your abilities.
Right. So when you showed up, you weren't Major Caren Hergenroeder,
Right.
You were just Caren.
I was just Caren.
Absolutely.
And who knew my background? Nobody.
Yep, and you had to prove yourself every day.
Right.
that is a definite change.
Right.
So Caren, you went through a hard time a few years back. You lost your grandmother. She passed away, and you guys were very close. Talk about how you worked through that and how you continued to strive and continue to be a leader through a tough time.
My grandma and I talked 3 times a day, so we were very close, and she died suddenly. And the day after her funeral, I was just really, in the depths of my grief, and I had 2 major events at work, and so I came back for them. And the master of ceremonies for the events got sick, and I had to fill in and narrate both events. And I really had to tell myself, this is not about you. They don't need to see a sad narrator up there, emceeing. This is about the person that the ceremony's for, and I needed to buck up, and I needed to realize that I'm capable of anything I want to be capable of during tough times, and I proved that to myself, and I hopefully made my grandma proud.
I'm sure you did, absolutely. So Caren, you are a professional Department of Defense civilian. You are a spouse, you're a wife, and you're a mother to 2 young kids.
Yeah.
What tips do you have for working women, for working moms out there to find balance in their life?
I find balance by making sure I have some time for myself every week, and usually that means exercising 2 to 3 times a week, a lot less than I exercise in the military, but it's something to maintain my physical abilities. Also, it's okay to bend the rules on the weekend and let your kids sleep in a little late, or let them stay up a little late to spend more time with you. Number 3, I take a couple hours of leave to go to my kids' events during the school day when there are special things going on at school, and I think that's an important thing to do. That's why you're given leave. And finally, my husband and I take date nights every other week, and we spend time trying not to talk about the kids. It's always hard, but that's really important to maintaining our relationship.
Absolutely, yeah. If you don't put your marriage first in the stage of life that you're in, with everything going on, that can be really tough. So that's a great tip. Caren, you're a protocol director, and you're passionate about protocol. You always have been. You were a former aide in the White House. I know that's something you really enjoyed. What are some protocol tips for the average person out there? We all go to ceremonies. We all go to big events. What are some protocol tips you could share?
Well, protocol is all about making people feel comfortable in no matter what the situation, whether it's formal, informal, and just creating the appropriate atmosphere, whether it's a very professional atmosphere or more laid-back atmosphere. So 3 tips is, if someone comes to your event and they haven't RSVP'd, don't make a big deal out of it. Don't make them feel bad. Just have a few seats reserved for people that didn't RSVP and have reserved on them on the seat, and just take them to that seat, and never make someone feel bad about doing something wrong like that at an event. The U.S. flag, number 2, is often displayed incorrectly, especially on TV. So make sure it's hanging down and to the right, meaning the blue portion of the flag is in the upper left quadrant, hanging down with the red and white stripes down and to the right, not down and to the left. And the 3rd thing is just treat everybody with respect, and you can't go wrong.
I can just see you watching TV and cringing every time you see.
I cringe. They're every show, 90% of shows.
Okay, well now we all know how to do it right. So
that's right.
So do it right, everybody. So let's close with this. I just asked you, what's your number 1 leadership tip that you would put out there?
Leadership tip: know your people. Know what motivates them. Know whether that's money or time off or just words of affirmation. You did such a great job today in front of a small group of people. Tell them that. It could be a generational thing or maybe not, but know your people and know what motivates them. And don't assume that someone knows the foundation. If someone's worked in a higher level of protocol and they come and work for me, I never assume they know the basics. I train them and make sure they meet the standards so that we can build upon that. And the 3rd thing is when you know what motivates your subordinates and you ensure that they have the foundation that you require or that's necessary to have the right skills for the job, then when they have an unusual circumstance come up or something happens at work that's out of the ordinary, that helps them be successful in those types of situations.
Yeah, those are some great tips. I really like how you tied in knowing your people to what you talked about before about what we call in the Army is counseling. We're not talking about laying on a couch, with a pipe like that. All it is to sit down and truly caring about people, challenging them, and getting to know them. It's more like a mentoring type session. So, right. Caren, appreciate your service to our country, and thanks for being on Lopez on Leadership.
No problem. you.